What's up, bikers? I'm Robert, and this is the B1KER Bar Podcast live stream, episode 110. And today's guest is Diamondback Bikes, and I'm pretty excited about that. I'm sure you guys have heard of them, especially if anybody's like in my age range. You definitely remember them from back in the day. So it'll be a very interesting conversation, as well as what they're doing today. But before that, let me do the normal thing here at the beginning. If you guys haven't followed me on Facebook or Instagram, just do it. And then maybe I'll stop asking every one of these every episode, or I'll just be talking to somebody other than you and you won't have to worry about that. However, I do want to mention something else a little bit different today is I had a company reach out to me, Lab Austria. I really am going to screw up their last name, or the name of the company. You think I would get that down, but it's just spelled funny and I can't get it out of my mouth. But anyways, they have the best hip back that I've ever used. And that's a big, bold statement, but I will say that it's my favorite. I've tried a bunch of different hip packs that have bladders in them and don't have bladders in them. And really what I just wanted was something that was like basically carry 2 water bottles, and if there's any storage in there at all, that'd be great. And I ended up picking up one of their bags, and it's just been my favorite. And I recently had to pick up another one because I've had the other one so long that I just wore it out. I've definitely told all my friends about it, and even did a 90-second review on it a little while ago. So if you want to go over to the BIKER channel, you can check that out as well. But if you're interested in buying one, there's a discount if you use the link and show more, and go over there and check it out. It's definitely worth the money. I have been pleasantly surprised with using it, and they're helping out sponsor today's show. So go check that out. Do me that favor. If you don't want to do that, and you do want to do something for free, like I said, go to Instagram, go to Facebook, give me a follow over there. If you haven't followed this, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe. And if you like the content, thumbs up. That's pretty good. Those of you guys on the podcast, if you are interested in writing a 5-star review, you should definitely take the time to do that. If you don't think it's quite 5-star, I wouldn't waste your time. So anyways, let's go ahead and bring the guests back on. Let's see if I can do this without screwing it all up. Here we go. Bam, bam, bam. All right. How's it going?
Hi there.
Good. Hello.
So we have today Jill and Michael. I would hope that those of you who are listening can tell the difference between who's who. And those of you who are watching, apparently you should be able to get it as well. Jill, if you want to introduce yourself, and then Michael, just so we can kind of understand what you guys do there.
Yeah, I'm Jill Nazir. I'm the marketing director at Alta Cycling, which is the parent company for Diamondback Bikes, Redline, iZip Bikes, and I've been with the company about 4 years now.
Cool.
My name is, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go for it. I was just
Okay.
gonna.
I'm Michael Brown, and I'm the VP of Product Development here.
Uh-huh.
And I have been with Diamondback specifically since 2003, and then have had various brand responsibilities surrounding Redline and iZip and a few others over the years. But Diamondback has been a part of my life since 2003. So I think that's 19 years.
Yeah, that's a long time. That's definitely a long time.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I mean, honestly, it's been a lot of fun. So
you said 2003?
Yeah.
So somewhere around there, you guys as a company, I think, were making some pretty big changes, weren't you?
There was a lot of big changes that year prior to my arrival.
Yeah.
And then we started really doing some bigger changes about 2-3 years after my arrival. So
when I was writing the intro, like the show notes, basically ahead of time, when I was a kid, in the 80s and early 90s in high school, and I did a lot of BMX. And back then there was basically like 4 bikes that you wanted. It was like GT, Haro, Diamondback, or Mongoose.
Yep.
And Redline was one of those other ones that wasn't like always known, but like if you're on the BMX courses, like everybody was like, yeah, that's a good bike. And I don't know if it was just me personally or it actually happened, but because around then I started getting into mountain biking.
Sure.
And I just didn't really hear about Diamondback at all for a while. Mm-hmm. Was there like a period of time before you actually got into mountain bikes, or was what was it that kind of happened through there?
Well, gosh, let's say maybe it's life happened.
Yeah.
There were a lot of changes with the company, over the years, like through the 90s, leading to, I'd say the more monumental changes that happened right around the early 2000s, where the company was bought and sold like a number of times.
Yeah.
And the direction of the company had changed a couple of times. And so, yeah, during that period of time, the brand wasn't getting the love that it deserved, and so, you didn't see a lot of new development happening during those, like, say, latter 90s, early 2000s. There was, I think, still a little bit of a, let's call it a lack of direction at that point with the brand, other than, hey, we got a great brand, let's sell a lot of bikes. That was kind of the direction. But I'd say roughly around 2004 and a half, we kind of dug our heels in a little bit and said, no, we need to make this brand what it deserves to be, and that's what we've been working on. And it's been great, challenging. I think we've got a lot of high points in these last years, but nothing else but a long road and a lot of things, but really focused on making the product unique and better, and for riders, for what they want to do. We've always had athletes, and we had a lot of effort, in those times with BMX athletes, actually back in the early 2000s. And we had a very interesting, again, this is kind of predating me. We had, I think, a world champion on Diamondback. I think he was from Australia. I forget his name. It's terrible. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I'm horrible with names.
But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Anyways.
Yeah. So I think over time, then you also, because back then, I did you guys used to do road bikes and stuff like that, or it was just BMX back then, wasn't it?
Well, so when you say back then, are you specifically referring to my period of time?
I don't even know.
Okay.
Whatever you want to answer.
So, it's funny.
I think in my head, it was like when I was...
I'll give you sort of a fun synopsis. I mean, Diamondback has always been in road bikes, right?
Really?
We actually under the Centurion brand before. So that's a funny story, which we won't go into. But the interesting thing about Diamondback, which I think no one knows and has probably forgotten, or it's comes up every once in a while, but you know how we have this gravel craze happening, right? With gravel bikes. I got to tell you, Diamondback was actually the first company to actually introduce, a gravel bike to the industry back in, I want to say, the mid 90s, which was actually at that time called the Overdrive. And it was a unique bike with 700C wheels. And at that time, Panaracer Smoke and Dart tires were the thing.
Yeah.
And Diamondback actually commissioned, Panaracer to make special 700 by 45C Smoke and Darts for that product. And it's kind of a fun thing to think about, what's old is new again. And, that's also, that honestly gave us the, again, just the kind of gumption to say, yeah, we're definitely, we can get into gravel bikes. When the gravel bikes started, early when it started happening,
right.
We felt we had the ability to kind of jump into that, with both feet. So, but yeah.
Where do you guys think that your brand sits like now, and what are you guys shooting for? Are you like happy with where you're at, or
who's ever happy with where they're at?
Right.
I don't know, Jill, do you want to hit that one?
Yeah. I mean, it's, product is always evolving. Michael and team are, constantly working to improve things that even if today we think, oh, these are really, really great, they're still going to work on improving it. So there's no stasis, it just keeps evolving and evolving. And from the brand standpoint, I mean, we're also kind of always evolving. There's always a lot of commentary about like, why don't we see Diamondback back in racing more? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? There's always going to be questions about why don't you do more of X, Y, Z? But I think we are in a really cool sweet spot because, as Michael said, we've always been striving to make bikes for every rider and to make them as accessible as possible. And unfortunately, so much of that lands on the product team to make that happen. But from the brand standpoint, it also kind of makes us a little more accessible, a little more like, we're people you can approach and talk to us.
Yeah.
We're not just going to sit there talking about spec with you all day. Like,
Yeah.
we're happy with whatever you're riding. Like, if you're out on 2 wheels, we're thrilled by it. So
right.
I think that's like a really cool spot to be in, that we don't have the pressure of having, only podium finishes or, something like that.
I think the builds that you guys have on the website are, I mean, they go from something that a very beginner would purchase to something that, whatever skill set would ride. I mean, I can't remember the names of all the models, but I was looking at, you have one that's like a 180 up front, 150 in the rear. Something.
Yeah.
And then
yeah, we do. I mean, we with regards to accessibility and like say full suspension. Yeah. we have the A-Tros series right now currently, which is a single pivot bike, and those start at like I think $700 or $800, right? So we've done really well with that bike. For honestly, it used to be called the Recoil. It used to be called the Coil before that. I mean, we've had this bike in the line for as long as I've been here, and in some fashion. And honestly, that opening price point bike is one of our best sellers. And I think that's a big part of, who Diamondback is. And that's inviting, people to come in and experience a better quality bike, and then which may lead them to then their even better quality, bike after that, just, get them into the sport. So,
yeah. I mean, what I was talking about a minute ago is the Mission 2 Carbon.
Ah, yes.
And that thing's like a huge, big squish bike.
Yep.
And let's just say, I mean, $5,000 is a lot of money for a bike. I would have never expected that to be, a normal price, and now that's like, oh, okay, well, that's average.
That's a mid-price bike now.
Right, exactly. Which just blows my mind, because my first bike in the 90s, my first mountain bike was like $500, and that was almost top of the line from Giant.
Let's do the math on that. I bet you that's a $5,000 bike in those dollars.
So, but on the other hand, you guys have that you have a hardtail that is like, oh, what is that one called? It's like blue and white, the Hook.
Oh yeah, yes. Again,
$815. I mean, and a lot of times for somebody getting into the sport, $1,000 is still a lot of money, but it's something that they feel like they can swallow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's really a unique, it's unique for a company to have bikes in that spread.
It's also, to help the consumers and to help grow the community of riders. I also monitor all of the Diamondback social media, and it is very common that someone's getting into, especially mountain biking, because a friend or a family member or a partner is encouraging them to do so. Yeah. And it can be, really intimidating if your buddy is like, oh, come ride with me. Here's a $5,000 bike you should buy.
Yeah.
But, much more likely that if there's a whole family of bikes, like the Release 5C might be $5,000, but a Release 1 is going to maybe be a little more price accessible for that person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's only a couple of brands that when somebody mentions to me that I would recommend, at the lower price points, where it's still a build that can be upgraded, it's still a build that has decent parts on it, and at the end of the day, it's mountain biking, you're gonna break everything. You know what I mean? Like if you're actually out there riding, it's just gonna break. So it is what it is. So you get forced into upgrading as time goes by, right?
It's part of the fun of it, right?
Yeah,
right.
It's the progression. It's as you get better on your bike, and as you learn, how to use it, and you want to, say, get a little bit, lighter bike or or a different style of bike. That's the goal, is to bring that person through that, that journey.
And it seems like that you guys have, I mean, you guys are carrying a 29ers, you're carrying a 27.5. You have the gravel bikes on there. You have what's being called urban, I guess, is or something like that. It's just more like I don't know how you explain that to somebody that's not looking at the picture. Basically, it looks like a fixie, but with gears, But I mean, you have it in like what you said as well. I mean, you have a really nice kids bike that is put together on 24-inch wheels, and so there's like something like you said for the entire family. What are you guys looking forward to?
Jill, you want to hit that one?
Sure.
Start there.
So, I mean, every year is an exciting year because we always have something new. As much as, dealing with what is going on in the current supply chain situation is always an adventure for all of us. So it's never boring. So we always look forward to that. But I really look forward to, from the brand side of things, everything that we're working on as far as working with our athlete team and just trying to grow the community of riders. We just signed a new athlete in January of this year. So we have, 2 riders that focus a lot on gravel. We have 3 that focus a lot on mountain, and everybody also has an e-bike. So it's kind of exciting that, I think this group that used to kind of be pigeonholed and doing one thing, we now can show that like all of this variety of bikes that we have that you just pointed out, that like you don't have to ride one thing, that you really can be a multi-type rider. And that's kind of exciting.
Have you guys seen the supply chain issues like change like design decisions that you're making for next year? Or
I wouldn't say they've changed design decisions. They have changed some spec decisions.
Yeah,
for sure. So, but yeah, I'd say design stuff, that's what we own, as a brand. Right. So that's all within our control. So that's the fun part, of really the big changes we made back in like 2004 and through 6 and beyond, is just saying, look, we're owning this. This is us. And, the components are, enhancements to those designs. So, I think we're all fortunate, to have accessibility to like, SRAM parts, Shimano parts. Yeah. There's some up and comers, like, I'd say Microshift that's been out there for a long time, but they've been making some really quality products in that like core kind of price point that we're talking about to really be accessible, but offer actually innovation. That's the thing we talk about, right? Is innovating. And, SRAM's innovated on one by, and Microshift is in one by on the high end, right? Microshift is innovating one by on the more accessible products. So, that's kind of what I'm excited about. We're actually going to be introducing, the hook going forward, where currently the bike has a bulky, chain guide on it. Microshift's offers us a drivetrain where we can get rid of that altogether, and run a one by system on that bike. And that's, I guess, that's exciting to me.
Yeah, it is definitely.
Yeah.
What kind of challenges do you guys see coming up with the whole supply chain issues? I mean, I heard something the other day just about like, some of the bigger companies are going in and purchasing like, hey, send me, 500,000 stems, and
I'll take 5 years of inventory, please.
Yeah, right. So, like, do you guys feel like you have it worked out, that there's bikes coming in and you're going to be able to sell like what you see as far as like orders go, or do you feel like the market's starting to level out some?
Yeah, go ahead, Jill.
Well, I can speak to like the more immediate. The good news is that there's been so much chatter about it that most consumers understand.
Right.
We definitely had like 10 months where people were like, where are the bikes? And, sometimes before I can even answer, another person would say, like, hey, are you living under a rock? Do you not know what's happening? So, I mean, by now, and, people seeing what's going on in the car industry or just raw materials supplies, I think now, the general market understands what's happening, and in a way, I think is making them almost more excited for the future, because they know that like when something comes, it's really special. And, I think that, good for the retailers too. We support independent bike shops through sales. And I think that the shops are really excited to, have bikes to sell. And it's been really great for Diamondback, especially getting bikes out there in the hands of people who maybe don't want to order online. So that's been exciting. And luckily the immediate future, we see some stuff moving, which is good. But Michael, you could probably speak to further down the line though.
Yeah, I was going to say, like I said earlier too, it's opening up opportunities for alternative component suppliers, which is great. And we're happy about that, to be honest with you. we still make huge commitments to Shimano and SRAM, and we're working on all that stuff and making sure we get our product, when we need it and when we want it. So it's definitely added to the stress, and the work level.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for, again, a lot of the bikes that we really, love to sell, we've been finding great solutions, and, and I'm excited for all of it. So.
Do you guys see more direct to consumer sales, or is the retail still pretty strong?
Yeah, retail's been really strong and definitely getting stronger, which is great. I think, we were making a real effort to reach out to the independent bike shops again. We do sell direct online. That's
Mm-hmm.
not a secret that we're omni-channel. And I think everything that was going on with the pandemic and the bike boom, and now, I don't even know what we call this period we're in, our new normal. But it's definitely been our opportunity to step up and help the bike shops, because a lot of shops maybe used to only carry one or two brands. And then, once they started looking for bikes that were available, and we had them. And so it was, honestly really cool to be able to step in and help those shops out and get them some bikes. And, even from the marketing standpoint, partnering with them more, that's been great. But we continue to sell direct online as well. And, any way we can get bikes out to the consumers that want them, be it through the website or through a bike shop or online ordering and shipping to a shop, again, it all speaks to the accessibility. Any way we can get bikes out to people is a win in our book.
I saw on the website, when people are ordering to home, it comes with like a tool pack and a bunch of other stuff. Yeah. You guys want to talk to that, or what the experience is like to buy online?
Yeah, I can speak a little to that. So, yes, if you ordered a bike straight to your house, it doesn't go to the shop first. You do have an option where you can send it to a shop if you really don't want to have to build it, if you don't trust yourself, which I understand. If you get it straight to your home, it comes with like a little toolkit and ideally everything that you would need to put the bike together. We have assembly guides online, and oftentimes even the athletes will do little assembly videos. Like, I know you've had Eric Porter on the podcast in Boston. Anyone who follows him on his YouTube channel, he has, tons of really great and almost more in depth than what we go into as far as unboxing of building a bike. And, he of course is an expert in all of that. So, he
even had like a shock pump and everything. I was really surprised. The shock pump, like I want to say a mud guard too, as well. Was shipping with it. So I really feel like, I don't know why more companies don't kind of give you the whole package, like that, especially like in some of the price points that you guys are at. Like, people don't know what they need. You know what I mean? Like, they just don't know, and so I think that's awesome that that's there.
Yeah. And we're happy to, help as much as we can. We have a great customer service team that definitely gets phone calls and they realize like someone put their fork on backwards. It happens. So we're happy to help. But, again, a lot of times it's almost better to support the local bike shop and have the bike shipped to them and let the pros do it too. How
much does it cost? Like $100 more or something like that? Or is it like, what's the...
No, I mean, most of the adult bikes you can get shipped to the shop at no additional charge.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So then you wouldn't even have to pay anything extra to have them put it together. That's cool. You mentioned Eric Porter. I've also had Seth on the channel on the show before as well. I mean, you guys have, I feel like you guys as a company stepped into that space with the content creators a little bit before a lot of other companies did. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, it's before my time, but obviously I've talked in depth with a lot of the athletes about all their time in Diamondback, and I think that the cool thing is a lot of my predecessors really saw that okay, if we're going to make a conscious choice to not necessarily sponsor first place finishers or somebody who always has to be on the podium, then how else can they provide value? And I think that at that time a lot of people are still figuring it out. Now it's totally normal to sponsor a rider who's also a content creator. In fact, I think that's like assumed, it's part of the job now. But back then nobody made that assumption, and I was actually just talking to Seth about this last week that, the person who had my role previous was really into YouTube and was watching Seth's videos and thought they were great and, pitched it to his boss, and they decided that this was like almost like something to take a chance on, because Seth didn't have a huge channel at that time. And, even YouTube 15 years ago wasn't, what YouTube is today.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
It really was kind of taking a chance, but like on, good faith that he had a strong YouTube channel, and, now Porter's building a really strong YouTube channel. So it's definitely had this cyclical effect of like our team members are also influencing and inspiring each other, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like obviously I'm biased. I'm on YouTube too, but I feel like there's definitely more. It seems like I meet more people that know the YouTubers than I meet people that know who pro podium
Absolutely.
racers are.
Yep.
I'm a guilty of that myself. I've never really been a person that was into racing, like, unless you were like Tony Hawk, you know what I mean? Like, unless you were like the name that everybody in the whole world knows. But I didn't really know who anybody was. And even to now, like, I go to Sea Otter and I've met some guys that are pretty famous in the mountain biking industry. And one of my buddies would be like, dude, you know who that was? I'd be like, no. Like, you just said hey and walked away like you didn't even care. And I was like, just some dude to me, like.
Well, Tony Hawk's a great example, because one of the reasons you knew Tony Hawk is because like that guy's a marketing machine.
Right.
Yeah, he's great at what he does athletically, but like he had a plan.
Yeah.
He didn't like just accidentally stumble into it. So
you're right. Yeah, totally. So what are some of the models that you guys sell the most?
So of the hardtails, the hook, line, and sinker are really popular. And, again, it's kind of like those entry level to mid-level price points. So it's like if it's your first bike or maybe your second, you're really excited about it. And then full suspension, like catch and release is our like mid-travel family. And that's what everyone gets excited about. And honestly, I think part of that is because there's so many variations in spec that you can like be a part of that cool bike family, but you don't necessarily have to be at the $5,000 price point. Yeah. So those are definitely the two most popular.
The hook, line, and sinker. So hook is just I'm just going off the site, $815. The line is $900, and the sinker. These are all hardtails, or is about $1,500. What's the big thing in componentry there that's changing between those?
Suspension and brakes.
Yeah.
And then tires. Yep. So we do a little bigger tire on the sinker as we go up.
And then in the full suspension, you had mentioned the release, and what else was it? The catch?
The catch and release. So the release is kind of like the main family, and that's, some of them are 29ers, some of them are 27.5. And then the catch was a part of that family, which had plus size tires.
Oh, okay. Do you guys see the plus tires sticking around, or you think that's kind of phasing out?
It's phasing out. There's I think you're seeing people running a bigger tire, but not up to that size. There's I think the weight part of it is what's driving that. The extra weight that bigger tire offers, and the performance advantage of just getting a lighter tire really does play well, on the trail. So
yeah. It's kind of a catch-22 for me. I really enjoyed the plus tire, but I honestly rode like a 2.8, so it wasn't like I was full on like to the size that some people were riding. But that I'm a bigger guy, so the plus tire for me when I first started riding them was like, oh wow, this is what grip feels like. So but I don't know. I mean, right now I ride 2.5 on both my bikes, and I don't know, it seems like you can get away with that just fine.
Yeah.
So so you guys have some carbon bikes and some aluminum, but it seems like spec wise on the wheels that everything's aluminum there to keep kind of keep the prices down.
Yeah. We do a carbon wheel set on the high end Honjo.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yep.
Have you guys considered like creating some of those parts yourself to maybe to bring prices down, like handlebars or hoops? It seems like everybody has a wheel company now.
Everybody does, and just for fun, we actually did invest in a carbon extrusion, or it's not an extrusion to be a mold for carbon, but a rim. We have that in the background, but it just hasn't come to fruition at this point. We've had it for about 3 years actually, but it's just an interesting mix of costs, right? So. But yeah, we've spent time actually making our own alloy extrusions as well. So like the Blanchard wheels that you see, that's actually named after a trail and a mountainous area up north of us in Bellingham, where there's a lot of real popular trails and stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, yeah, we've definitely spent our time creating our own wheel company, but we haven't really spent time marketing that, but we put them on the bikes, and we definitely provide, I would think, what I would like to think is a next level wheel for the consumer without completely advertising it. But we're tubeless, it's we have an offset spoke bed, so everything's really well thought out, with these rims that we're offering. So but not a standalone wheel brand.
Yeah, no, I understand, but something then that's how you're helping to try to bring the cost down a little bit, is developing it on your own there. Do you see do you think that you're selling just as many carbon bikes as you are aluminum, or does it seem like it's one way or another?
We tend to sell more aluminum, just because the price point, honestly. But we for sure see the people who want us to do like the step up, like they want to graduate to the carbon. So we get asked a lot about carbons, like, oh, I have an alloy, I'm ready to make the move up. So that's talked about a lot. But for sure, we have tons of models that are aluminum, so we definitely sell more of those.
Do you see a lot of brand loyalty there, or do you feel like once people have used your bike as like the entry-level bike to get them into it, then they're maybe looking at other brands at that point?
I mean, I'm sure it would be naive of me to say people don't look at other brands. I'd like to think that they only look at us. But no, I mean, we have tons of brand loyalty. It's I mean, the most common thing we hear when we're at an event is, oh, my first bike was a Diamondback, or like, oh, I just got my kid a Diamondback, or I'm about to get my girlfriend a Diamondback, or things like that. It's very common that people either remember it from their childhood or someone else influenced them to get a Diamondback, so then they tend to graduate through the family.
Yeah, I think at our next event, Jill, we should make that a drinking game.
No, because we gotta work. That could be a dangerous drinking game.
I mean, you had me at drinking game, so. Where? So you guys are located, you said, in Seattle area?
Kent, Washington. So it's like 40 minutes south of Seattle. Okay. It's next to the airport.
Yeah, really, really close to the airport.
Yeah. It's nice up there. Lots of like really good riding, and I've been up in that area a couple of times. It's super, super, super nice up there. Where do you guys develop the bikes at? They're in Seattle as well, or?
Yep. Yes.
And then what about manufacturing? Where do they get put together at?
Well, we have various points of manufacturing. Right now, we've been centering in on mostly Taiwan for frame assembly, frame making, with I guess, a lot of aluminum frames actually coming out both of Taiwan, and then also some, out of other locations like China still. Full suspension, we actually transitioning all of our full suspension, out of China into Taiwan. And stuff like that. But yeah, we pretty much focus in assembly. We do in both Taiwan, and we actually have moved assembly out of China. We're doing most of our assembly of bikes in Vietnam.
What's the push to get out of China?
Tariffs.
Yeah, I was just curious. So, what's that process like of designing the bike? So you have developers that are there in Seattle, let's just say, for the point of it, and so then how do they go from a design all the way to production?
I'll try to make this quick.
Yeah.
Actually, we have an in-house engineer here. We have a couple of outside partners that we've worked with for, I think almost a decade with at least one of them, or actually both, that we work specifically on full suspension, with kinematics and some of the designs that we do, like the level link, and things like that. We work with a fellow named Luther Beal of Level 1, and he's our, I'd say, primary kinematics guy. But the guy we have here in house, he's also very capable full suspension designer. So we have that resource. We do have a singular resource in Taiwan that helps follow up on a lot of the details, which has been invaluable to us, at least in the last couple of years where we can't travel anymore. But the way the process works is, quite frankly, we'll bring Eric Porter into the office. Eric's been a big part of where we sort of decide and make our decisions with regards to product direction. Our own experience through riding, we have, I'm not as capable as I once was, but we've got some guys here, a fellow named Doyle Savola, who's incredibly capable, very, very much needless to say, a very strong rider. Definitely, he pushes short travel bikes on trails that should be done on missions, stuff like that. Our Yowie, actually, which coming out, has been ridden on every big trail in the Northwest, multiple times. I've tried to go with him on some of those rides, and it's not good. But anyway, so we do a lot of extensive, Doyle spends a lot of time on the bikes. Eric Porter spends a lot of time on the bikes. And we get their feedback and we make changes if need be. And we communicate, these changes, through, the factories that we work with. And that's a process that takes time, and once we've confirmed on everything, that then goes into tooling, where you have to tool up the bike, and then we send that into, testing internally, and then also third-party testing to make sure that everything's going to function and all that fun stuff. And then when we get that done, we then ride them all again, and go from there. And within all that, which I didn't mention, is there's a lot of shock tuning sessions. So we'll work very closely with RockShox and Fox, and do independent ride tests with them, using their rear shocks mainly, honestly, because that's where you really need to kind of refine, your rear suspension, performance. And again, based on the use case, right? So, a rear shock that goes on a mission is going to be tuned completely differently than a rear shock that's on a Yowie. So, there's a lot of activity that goes on with that stuff. But we're also using math, right? So you can take a suspension curve, from a drawing, apply that, Fox and both RockShox have great, development teams on each side. And we'll get an initial tune. We'll ride that, figure it out, add volume spacers, things like that, and dial that stuff in. And then, once we get that all confirmed, that thing gets fired up, in the assembly factory, boxed up and shipped. That's it in a nutshell.
I had a Cascade Components on a while ago, and he had said something similar, he's like, it's math. He said, I can pretty much figure this stuff out, how it's going to work without actually putting it on the bike. He said very, very, it was rarely that you would put it on the bike and be like, oh, this isn't,
and be surprised, right?
Yeah.
And that's true. Honestly, that's why, again, Eric Porter, or, again, people that have spent lots of time on bikes, getting their feedback is invaluable,
No, I was going to ask that question too, if you guys are using your athletes to help develop.
And we design toward, let's say, that goal, and if you were to ask Eric Porter what his main goal is for a bike, there's one word.
What's that?
Playful.
Playful. Yeah.
Yep.
That's good.
If it's not playful, it's not good.
Yeah.
So, and those words alone will help us, kind of define, how we design a bike, or how we approach that particular product. And, honestly, all of our bikes, the way they are designed with the differential, longer fork, shorter rear, it lends it exactly to that feeling, because that shorter travel in the back just gives you that kind of flickability, that the bigger, longer travel in the back would kind of maybe take away. So that front fork is what hits everything first, so that's why you like that long travel in the front. And and then the shorter travel in the back it's kind of the bonus, with regards to just, again, the flickability or the maneuverability of the bike. So feels lighter beneath you.
How are you getting what are the forks that are coming on some of the lower end builds that you guys have? Are they still from those companies, just like a different
Yeah, like from RockShox, they have a full range of forks, and they go deeper in price points than say Fox does. Fox has a fair let's say a pretty limited, mostly mid to high, or I should say high end, really.
Yeah.
With the rhythm being their kind of low end. But yeah, RockShox, offers all the way into the Judy, category, and that's, I think, the lowest one these days. The Recon is a popular fork to spec. And then, kind of going up from there. And then even below that, like forks that you see on the hook, line, and sinker, they're good entry-level forks from SR Suntour, which is a pretty predominant brand for middle price point bikes. And we do our best to put as many features on those bikes as possible, given the price point. But yeah, when you start getting to that performance level, RockShox provides kind of an earlier option, so.
How do you I saw on that the Atros, is that how you guys pronounce it? That you have a coil on there. Who's that by?
That actually that is by I want to say it's changed over the years, because lower price coil over rear shocks are difficult to come by.
Yeah.
And so we were purchasing, which I have to double check this, so please don't quote me, but we were purchasing an X Fusion rear shock. Which X Fusion, obviously they've also tried to grow their business in the upper end, and that particular brand is also made by A-Pro, which is the frame maker that we use for alloy frames.
What made you guys decide to use the coil there instead of trying to find just cost?
Yeah, to keep the price low. An air can rear shock, it needs to be machined correctly in order for it to work right. So that then the price differential between a coil and an air shock is quite big. Although, air shocks have come down in price over the years, but you still have to have good seals. You can't have crappy seals. So, so yeah. And then just to really get into that price point, the coilover is the way to go. And that rear shock, for the performance level that it is, I mean, really the only problem is it's heavy. That's the biggest problem. I mean, you could ride that thing and it feels pretty good. You've got preload rings, so you can kind of adjust the suspension a little bit, but the weight is really its only downside. So, and a lot of folks, prefer coil, the feel of coil, but again, that when you get to the high level coil, like that you're seeing from Fox and RockShox, that's a completely next level product.
Yeah. I've yet to try one. Everybody tells me I should, and it's just like one of those things where I feel like it's really hard for me to talk myself into spending that money on something that I don't know if I'm gonna like. Do
you like cushy suspension?
Yeah, I do.
it's the best on small bump compliance.
Yeah.
So you're gonna feel a little smoother with a coil.
Yeah, so I think I just need to pull the trigger and take a chance, and worst case scenario, I could probably sell it. So
you could get a hookup somewhere, right? You can get a hookup.
Yeah,
right?
I would imagine.
You must know somebody in the industry.
Yeah, one of these days it'll fall into place. I could probably say I haven't put a lot of effort into trying.
You don't have my email address or anything, right?
So yeah, it'd be one of those things that would be fun to try, but I don't know.
What bike are you riding right now?
I have two bikes that I ride mostly. I have a Bronson and a Tallboy.
Okay.
And I've been riding that short travel 29 or even more and more. It seems like, because I live in Northern California, pretty close to Tahoe.
Okay.
And the Bronson really only gets out whenever I know I'm going to get somewhere that's real chunky.
Yep.
And when I first got the short travel 29er, I really I was like, oh, it'll be better for the local trails. And I kind of did what you were saying your guy did, is like just kept taking it to worse and worse places.
Just and taking the trails you love.
Yeah, and I think it'll be all right, and there's been a few times that I was like, all right, that really like worked the hell out of like my body suspension, like
yeah, for sure.
Your shoulders and your legs are just done at the end of the day.
Yep.
And you realize, okay, that might have been a little bit too much, but on the other end, you're like, I also still had fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it's getting, I've been riding for so long. It's starting to get harder to know, what it would be like if I was a beginner, you know, like I'm pushing that short travel bike like to the edge, you know, basically. But if I was going a lot slower, it might not even be it might be a great bike for somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to say, you know?
Yeah.
Because in some circumstances, slow is a little easier. I mean, obviously, if you go too slow, you're gonna be stopping yourself.
Yeah.
But
momentum is your friend. That's
yeah,
my motto.
yeah. It used to be one of those things that you hear though when you're a newer rider that people are like, "Oh, when you go faster, it'll be better," and you're like,
"It will be."
As a new rider, you're like, "Forget you. I don't even want to hear what you're saying."
It's like an F1 car,
right?
The faster you go, the easier it turns.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
So, how do you guys come up with your color schemes and stuff like that?
So we have an in-house design team of 2 people. So I mean, they do everything. They do color and graphics and all of that. And so basically, Michael Brown's team, you know, they do some engineering and they start to kind of see how the bike's going to take shape. And then our design team actually goes to like outdoor retailer. They'll go to car shows. So they're not just looking at the bike industry to copy what other brands are doing color-wise. They're like looking at outdoor apparel. They're looking at what's coming with cars, especially because cars are, you know, often in a similar production schedule. You know, like you'll get to see like the year forwards cars. So they use a lot of that. They research color trends and go to Pantone meetings and all of that. And then they put a lot of work into making a lot of different options. And then a bunch of us sit in a room and tear down all those options.
Yeah.
And we all basically like, you know, go to bat for the ones we like or the colors we know will sell, or just, you know, sometimes going out on a limb that we're not sure if people are going to like it, but it looks so cool. And we're all so excited about it that we just do it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's something that I always am curious about how those decisions are made, because I know as somebody that's done design work as far as like web design stuff goes, and it's tough to come up with what colors that you actually, you know, you want to work with. And then I would imagine you guys have, you know, sales numbers that you can look at and be like, well, every time we try yellow, it doesn't work, you know, or whatever it is.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, we all joke about it. If you go by the sales numbers, every bike will be black.
Yeah, everybody will be black.
We take that with a grain of salt. I mean, we definitely do have black bikes. One of our brand colors. But yeah, I mean, sometimes, you know, it really is like 4 of us could really love a color and 2 people could hate it. And so sometimes you do majority rules. I'll also tell you it's been interesting in a pandemic because we have our color meetings on, you know, virtual on our computers, and every computer also has slightly different screens and the colors look a little different. So, you know, they order tubes and stuff to be able to see what the colors look like. But in the end, when we finally get to see the photo sample in real life and not on a screen somewhere, it really is like Christmas. Like we all get really excited about finally getting to open the bikes and seeing them in person. So
yeah, I would imagine, because I know I've definitely been shocked by what I saw in person compared to like what I thought I was purchasing in the past. So it's there's definitely been a few times where I was like, oh, that doesn't look anything like, and then you go back and you read the color name and you're like, oh, I see. They did tell me. I just didn't hear that, you know? So
yeah, totally. And it, you know, for us, like when we shoot photography of it, it depends on where you're shooting. You know, we're in the Pacific Northwest. It could be like dark and raining under tree cover one day, and it could be like super bright and sunny in a desert like atmosphere the next day. So it will always look different, but it's always a process.
I hear you there. So are the colors that are on the website now, is that what's selling through 2022, or is there new colors coming soon? Or
depends on the bike. Some of what's on there now are the 22 bikes. So it's like what, you know, is here, or more of them are coming. And then we will eventually also have a color refresh as the year goes on. So kind of depends on like what bike it is. And, you know, as Michael said, we manufacture in a few different places. So they're all kind of on different timelines.
Is there a like industry standard bike release time of the year, or is it really up to each individual company and what they do?
I think pre-2020, there was, like
Uh-huh.
a lot of new bikes would start to come out. A lot of bikes would like launch at either Sea Otter
Right.
or they would wait for Eurobike in the fall. So you would
Uh-huh.
kind of see like one or the other. Now, whenever we can get the bikes is when their launch date is.
Right. Yeah. So
Yep.
it's like Tuesday in March. Yes.
They're here.
Important
We always
day.
pretend like it's intentional, though.
Yeah, exactly. That's marketing, right? That's funny. So, do you see that kind of staying that way, or do you think that the industry will go back to the way that it was, where it's more of a traditional timeline? I'm sure that's easier for you guys to plan for and stuff.
Michael, do you have an answer for that?
Well, I'll comment. Honestly, with the internet and folks like yourself and other platforms, honestly, it hasn't. I would say even before the pandemic, you had people or companies launching bikes. Again, I think with complicated bikes, it really is defined by the development schedule and when you can get it through all those steps that we kind of mentioned. And you'd see bikes being launched, in November and January, and it started not mattering so much, right? Especially with some of these higher end bikes, like full suspension bikes and stuff like that. It's kind of like the minute you get your newest thing ready, you want to launch it. You don't want to wait. Like again, the traditional time frame was wait till about July to launch a bike to the consumer, or Sea Otter in the case of say earlier launch or what have you, but to use an event to really make a splash with your new product. I think the interesting piece to that puzzle is, I don't know if you guys ever experienced this, or your viewers or listeners, but companies would launch a bike like say at Sea Otter, but it's going to come in the fall.
Yeah,
they'll deliver it in the fall. That was the traditional cycle. Where you get all this hype about a bike and Sea Otter, and it's like, when can I buy it? It'll be in dealerships in December.
Yeah,
and then over the summer you get delays from Shimano. It's going to be February. That was kind of how it did. That's how it worked before. I think we're working towards an improvement now, actually, with just being kind of launching when the product is ready and available. And that's what makes sense.
Yeah, I've definitely bought a bike when it first launched, and then we played this like every 2 weeks game for like 3 months.
Sure.
Until I actually got it. It was like, that wasn't the way that I thought this was supposed to go. But I mean, it is what it is, and I think that's interesting though. You mentioned Sea Otter and Eurobike. Do you feel like some of the other smaller events have a lot of value as well, or more value, or do you think that Sea Otter is really packing the punch that?
I think for us, the smaller events actually have more value. Sea Otter will always be important. It's great from the industry perspective. We get to go out and see everybody. We get to see the racing. We get to have like our meetings, and I get to see a lot of like our athletes or our nonprofit partners. It's nice to all be in the same space. Sea Otter is very important, but we do very well when we can actually have interactions with like real humans.
Right.
And we tend to really thrive more in the small to medium size events where we can actually like sit and talk to people. So, we saw you at Sedona. Sedona is one of my favorite events to go to, from the brand and marketing seat, because we're not like in a rush trying to shuffle hundreds of bikes and demos in and out the door and like, okay, nice to see you, goodbye. We can actually just sit and talk and hang out, which is really who our brand is. We want to be able to sit and talk to everybody, so it helps.
Sedona is a super fun event. I can't speak highly enough about it. It just seems like it's just really put together well, and it has the right number of people and vendors and whatnot. I don't know like if they're trying to make that one grow more or not, but it definitely seems like they've been doing a good job with that. Is there some other event that's more on the East Coast that you guys like would think is like a same kind of event as Sedona? Or
we haven't gone east a lot recently just because we're such a small team, but we're considering some East Coast events for next year. But also, Seth is going to be opening his public bike park, fingers cross this year.
Yeah.
And we're a sponsor of Berm Park, and we have like a sponsored line and everything. So we're really hoping to get out to see him, this coming year, so we can see the park and, hopefully do something fun there for everybody.
Yeah, that would be super exciting. So go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Would you be in that, like bringing like demo truck or something like that is what you would think, or?
Hopefully, fingers crossed. We're also very lucky that there's like retailers in that area too. So we're going to try and find a way to make it work, because, we were thrilled to help Seth, with building the park and supporting the park, but like we want to go to the park.
Yeah.
It wasn't just out of our good graces.
Right. Yeah. No, it's been a very exciting project to watch happen from online, and to see it actually come to fruition. That's pretty rad. And that guy's always coming up with something else. He's definitely I guess your own Tony Hawk, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's but like still average, like he's still, average Joe. And for a while when he was really hurt, or like, he and his wife had a baby, life happens, and you're not out riding every minute of the day, and that's real life. He wasn't gonna like fake it and pretend like he was going on like these epic rides every day while all of this was going on. And I mean, I joke, like one of his videos last week, I sat and I watched him for like 4 minutes and 45 seconds making avocado toast.
Right. Yeah.
So you're like, I'm just going to sit here and watch you do this.
Yeah.
So he always finds a way, but it's really cool to see his progression from, bike hacks to now building this huge public bike park that he could be funded through like his Patreon and sponsors. And it like just goes to show that if you have a good idea and you're willing to work your butt off at it, it'll get big.
Yeah, he's definitely quite the content creator. I used to always joke that I'd watch him put together a toilet, and then I've sat there and watched. I watched the avocado toast one too. So he got me on that one. So it's like, am I really watching him make a sandwich for his dog? Yes, I am.
That's how I felt too. I was like, I can't believe I just watched that for 4 minutes. But you do.
Yeah. So, and so you said, oh, that's what I was going to ask you guys. So you have Sea Otter and you have Eurobike. I would imagine you guys got the same kind of emails that I did, that Interbike's talking about trying to put something together. Do you think there's room for something else like that?
I mean, I think there's always going to be room for more events. People will go to them. They'll go, but there's also a lot of events now. And I think, I also think it depends on the brand. We're like, people would be very surprised to know how small our team actually is. We don't have like hundreds of employees with 40 demo trucks.
Right.
And so for us, when we have to pick or choose where we're going, we choose to go to a variety of events so we can meet a variety of different people. If we only went to like very specific bike events, it may not be as valuable to us. For us, it's kind of nice to switch it up and like go to a big gear show, which is a little more like outdoor focused, things like that. So I think it just kind of depends on like what your goal is for the event. For Michael and his team, if they're meeting with suppliers and stuff, it helps them to go to a bike specific event, Yeah, it's definitely, you mentioned something about you guys being a smaller team. And I think that's one thing that I've learned through the podcast and having my channel, that a lot of the companies aren't these huge companies, that people think that they are. And that's, it's interesting. It's really interesting, because I think that and I think these podcasts really help a lot for this as well. I call it like humanizing your brand, because I think a lot of times people just think like, oh, Diamondback, I knew that when I was a kid. So they must have, just a bunch of dudes in suits sitting around like trying to cash checks, or, and like, for
like
sure.
You're talking about the 90s. That's the 90s.
Right. So, but I mean, it's the same thing too. Like Cali, they make that helmet that's back there, and I mean, you would think that, oh, that's a big company, but you go and it's, it's like 20 guys or 30 people. It's not a whole lot of people, and it's not like they just are, throwing money around, flying all over the world, going to every event, because like that costs money. It's just, you have to see a return of it somehow, and you got to kind of weigh that out. So it's interesting to see how things have gone over the years. So when you guys are at Sedona, though, because that's coming back up, you guys do have demos there. What kind of demos do you bring?
I mean, it depends on the event. So like an event like Sedona, which is the Sedona Mountain Bike Festival. So we'll, try to bring like our higher spec bikes. Because usually when people come to an event, it's like, yeah, they might be interested in a release 1 or 2, but it's really cool to ride the 5C.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
You want to give them the experience of the bike they probably don't have yet. Or if they do already have it, they're really psyched to see the newest version of it. So we tend to bring, a lot of full suspensions, a lot of like our carbon or the higher end 29 alloys. But then for an event like Big Gear Show, for instance, which is more broadly outdoor focused, we kind of bring a smattering of everything. Like we brought the mountain bikes, but we had the gravel bikes, we had e-bikes. We just launched e-bikes this past year. So it was really exciting for both consumers, and a lot of the media didn't have an opportunity to test ride those bikes. So, we really want to let people try everything. Maybe they already have a mountain bike, but they're curious about gravel. So, we want to just kind of bring a little bit of everything that we can.
Yeah. I was hoping that you guys had that hardtail that we were talking about earlier whenever I'd seen you. I think I'd seen you at Sea Otter originally, and that hook. And I didn't talk to you there. I talked to somebody else, but it was like, no, we don't have that one. I was like, oh man. Because to me, I really wanted to see like what that build like rides like, and I know that, there's a lot of people out there that want to spend a ton of money on bikes, but then there's also a bunch of people that don't. And I think for me to provide good content to people, that I need to try all of the above, and not just go and be like, oh, this is these brakes are crappy, blah, blah, it's like, well, dude, come on. You're not paying for a $5,000 bike. What do you got to like give the right review for it. But I think that it's really interesting to see how well some of the lower end bikes perform, and
and that's where a lot of our retail partners really help us out. A lot of, we have, like a dealer locator on our website, and we have opportunities for people to find the bikes if they, do want to go somewhere local and try them. And, sometimes even the athletes, they're not always getting the top spec bike. Seth had a Hatch, which is our newest entry level hardtail. And so he'll like sometimes compare, the highest end release 5C to an entry level spec, and Porter does it too. So, sometimes we send them to the athletes and we let them give feedback, even though it's not the top spec. It's kind of fun to see them compare it.
Yeah. I think that's definitely fun to do as well. Do you guys see yourself making some bikes that are exceeding the top of the line bike that you have now, or do you think that is a good place for you guys to be at and just try to keep the market there?
I'd say we're, we like where we're at with that, like with the carbon bikes and the 5C being the top end. It is easy to get to spec up from there, and offer a bike, but quite frankly, the bikes that we're providing, with the spec that they have are perfect for 99% of the riders out there. Yeah. And if you want something just that next level, I mean, you can change some components, maybe make a little bit more investment in a wheel set. And that's the kind of stuff where when you do start getting in those upper echelons, people start thinking like they want this or that. Right. So it's maybe easier for them to, tune their bike to what they think is the right spec when they want to spend more and more money.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it hard to, like, for me personally, to like agree to pay, let's just say 10 grand on some of these newer bikes for like whatever their build is, because to me right away, I'm already like, well, I'm changing those tires.
Yeah.
I'm putting this other dropper on because I like this dropper better. I'm like changing this and changing that. I'm like, I don't want an XX1 derailleur. I'll take a GX because I know I'm just going to break the damn thing anyway. So like there's stuff like that where I don't know who buys those bikes. Like
Dentists.
Yeah. And
no offense to dentists.
No, right? So. But for me, I just like, unless unless we're getting a good like deal, like an industry deal or something, I don't know. Like to me, it's just, I guess I just have too many preferences, and
sure,
it seems like I'd rather build my bike at that point. Once you're starting to get into spending that kind of money.
Yep.
So I would imagine too, like for you guys, it's just, how do you decide then? Like right now, you got a Fox 36 on a handful of your bikes. That's a very popular fork.
Yep.
If you might have chose something else, maybe you wouldn't sell as many because you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So,
for sure. I mean, we definitely spec like, at a price range, like the best possible, suspension. I mean, that's a focus, if you're to break down like how we make decisions on spec, it's that, it's first the frame, then the suspension, then the wheels. And then the rest is kind of, it's cool that a GX is a perfect component. It's a great durable, high performing, great component, and it doesn't cost as much as an XX or an XO.
Yeah.
So,
it's just, I mean, I think maybe I'm a little bit more budget conscious in that aspect all along. I mean, even with Shimano, when I used to use their stuff, it would be like, I'm not buying more than XT. It's just, you're just paying for it to get lighter. It's not really performing any better. At least that was my perspective. So,
yeah.
But, how does it work with like the component sets? Like when you're building out that bike, do you get in a position where SRAM's like, well, we want you to use, our brakes and our drivetrain, or do you have the ability just to like mix and match, or I don't know how that works with the industry.
It depends, but like right now, actually, the only company that does have kind of a requirement like that is SRAM, where you have to use their X-Sync ring if you're gonna use their 1x drivetrain. So that requires some creativity. On some bikes, if you are, let's say if you're speccing something a little bit different, but that's really the only one. And then compatibility comes into play, right? So, Shimano stuff doesn't work with SRAM stuff, so, but brakes are a big departure area, right? So, Shimano, I would say, let's just say as an overall trend, Shimano brakes have been outperforming a lot of brakes out there. So you'll see spec with SRAM drivetrain Shimano brakes. That's not uncommon at all. And vice versa.
Brakes suck.
I'm not going to say that. They've made some good,
from my perspective.
Let's just say they had a bad year, all right, with some brake technology. They then learned from that. And then they kind of made some changes, and I think their brakes are definitely functioning, way better now, but they still suffer, from that hangover. That's what's important about, being careful about innovation sometimes. But
right.
But you have people that are just swear by some SRAM brakes and stuff like that, and then just swear by Shimano and, and stuff. So that's kind of the area where you see departure, right? So.
Yeah, I wasn't sure like if their other brands were that way as well, and I wasn't sure, because most of the time if I see a SRAM drivetrain, most of the bikes are running SRAM brakes then too. So I wasn't sure if that was like they kind of get in where like
they prefer it, but it's not a requirement.
It's not a requirement.
No, just the drivetrain part that they have a requirement on. Like they literally won't ship you parts.
Yeah. So because they have their so I mean they could provide almost most of the bike for you if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure they would like that.
I mean, that's the thing that's where they're very unique, because I mean SRAM is RockShox. They have suspension, drivetrain. There's zip wheels. Not that that's a mountain bike part, but I mean, they know how to make wheels there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, you guys mentioned earlier that you just recently brought out an e-bike. What was that development process like?
Well, so we brought out 4 e-bikes, and they're all
Uh-huh.
focused around speed. Again, I think for Diamondback, we are always, trying to push, a little bit on the edge, with what we're offering out there, right? And so, we had, again, probably let's just say this without the easiest thing to do is a hardtail, and one of the more difficult things to do is a full suspension bike. So
Right.
for us, the quickest route, to say an e-bike offering was to go this direction, offer a couple, 3, I guess, the Response, the Union 1 and 2, and then the Current, some really cool, speed focused e-bikes. And so that was a decision we made based on the fact that we could get those out quickly. Right. And we are working hard right now on full suspension e-bikes. So that's something that we'll be seeing here shortly from us. That's probably the biggest hole in our line at the moment. So, so yeah.
So
the process. Go ahead.
I saw on your website that High Bike is also, I guess, under the same umbrella as you guys or something like that, like a parent company or something.
Nope.
No.
I'll do a quick thing. We were distributors of High Bike as a company.
Oh.
And that's something that is helping our business, on the side of filling that e-bike channel.
Okay.
Some of
so
the
then
EIBDs
the other brands that were there as well, like Redline and stuff like that. So there's not actually an affiliation with you guys as a company, or?
So just to make it, Jill mentioned we're part of Alta, and Alta we own Diamondback, Redline, and the iZip brand, which is a recreational lifestyle e-bike brand. And those are the 3 brands that we focus on. The other brands that we're associated with are Ghost, High Bike, as you mentioned, and Raleigh also. And those are brands that we've been in a let's call it a distribution role with for the last couple of years.
Oh, interesting.
And
Oh, so I wasn't sure if they had because I know they were doing a bunch of stuff. I remember seeing a bunch of their stuff like e-bike wise at the last Interbike that there was a couple years back. So I wasn't sure if there was some kind of blending in there as far as you guys developing your e-bike or not. So, but no,
totally separate.
Yeah. So, so you're saying that you're probably some full suspension e-bike coming out here in the future, and we'll have to wait for Sea Otter or something like that, or Monday. What did we say earlier? Tuesday in March.
It's usually for us. Everything's got to be done by 2:00. So,
right.
Yeah, Tuesday at 2 next week.
Yeah. Where do you see? Do you see any big changes in the industry happening that you think that you guys are kind of getting ramping up for, or anything like that, or?
I could speak a little bit to immediate stuff. So, I don't think it's a secret to many people, probably not your listeners and viewers, that e-bikes will continue. We see continued growth in e-bikes.
Right.
We see what's happening in Europe and their popularity, and especially during the pandemic, them being transportation alternatives. People were, if you only had a little bit to get outside, you didn't want to be in a car. So, that'll continue to grow, and we're going to follow that trend. And we see gravel really growing a lot. I think a lot of road cyclists and triathletes have been increasingly nervous about being out on open roads with traffic, and a lot of those athletes are transitioning over into gravel. Just a lot of people kind of feel safer out there. And I think there are a lot of mountain bikers, including our athlete team, who, while they focus on mountain biking, they like to have the gravel bike as the extra, horse in their stable, so to speak. And, we sponsor a professional triathlete, Rach McBride, who's transitioning into gravel racing. So it's definitely a growing category, and you can even see it in event offerings. There's way more gravel races now than there were 2 years ago or 5 years ago. So.
Yeah, it's interesting to me to see that space growing. So you think it just attributes to people not wanting to be on the road, but and still enjoying road riding, basically, is what you're saying?
I think it's it's part of it. I think the benefit of a lot of gravel bikes is that they're versatile. To Michael Brown's point, what we call a hardtail now was kind of like a gravel bike before. That's the overdrive. So they're definitely flat bar gravel bikes. But I think that if you were used to road and drop bar, most of our gravel bikes are drop bar. So if you're used to the handling and maneuverability of a road bike, you're going to feel pretty comfortable on a gravel bike. It's basically a wider tire. And I think that people who are used to handling mountain bikes would be fine on a gravel bike too. So it's kind of a middle ground, which is nice.
Yeah, for me, I just couldn't talk myself into buying a road bike. So I was like, I can do this. So it's pretty flat in Sacramento. I used to ride a lot of, I have a single speed bike that's with drop bars and after a while, the lady and I started riding more and she wanted to do more climbing. And it got to a point where I was like, okay, well, I need more gears.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to spend the money on a road bike because I knew that I wouldn't use it that much, and where the gravel bike, I could actually see myself like, oh, well, I could do this ride from my house up to this trail system. And, it's like 15 miles, 20 miles away, but I could still like do a little loop up there on the trails and then ride back. And that's still like, that's like in the wheelhouse,
Oh yeah. People use them for commuting on road, or you can take a little off, or, I tell a story of my husband had a knee surgery and was signed up for a half Ironman, and he was more comfortable riding his Honjo than his tri bike. So he took his gravel bike for, a long distance triathlon. So it can kind of do everything, which is nice.
Yeah. It is definitely, it's a fun bike.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you guys feel like you would have done differently over the last few years, like after like looking back at how things played out with the pandemic?
Stockpiled components.
Yeah.
Bought a warehouse.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So anything else that you're thinking about for the future?
For us as a brand, we're definitely, we like where we live, but we want to grow it. We appreciate that there has been kind of a pandemic fueled bike boom. And, all we can do to try and keep it going is continue to make people feel welcome and safe on a bike. And I think for a lot of us that have been riding a long time, maybe we forget how scary it can be to, go out on a trail for a first time, or show up to a group ride for a first time, or just like put your butt on a seat for the first time. And so, we're really focused on how to get that next generation of riders feeling comfortable and safe, and, just making sure that we're trying to be as inclusive as possible because, frankly, because it's, more fun with more people riding. We need more people riding to, advocate for more riding. But also we know that like as an industry, we need more people riding. So, that's really our focus from the brand standpoint.
Yeah. Do you see that, or do you think that a lot of these new riders will stick to? You guys have you guys seen any kind of like numbers that are like, this is how many people we think we're actually going to get out of it? Or
the numbers are interesting because you can have numbers show anything you want to say, and we can only predict, none of us have lived through a pandemic where we have numbers to gauge off historicals.
Right.
But, I think everyone's optimistic, everyone shows the numbers as continued growth. Especially in the e-bike segment where we can see what's been happening in Europe. So everyone's optimistic about it. And so we hope that that's right. And we hope we're all doing everything we can, not just as a brand, like as an industry, for us all to like work together and make sure that happens.
Did you guys like ramp up your amount of bikes that you guys were manufacturing after this, or are you trying to like get what you were getting before and like kind of just sell that, or how's that?
It's a combination.
Yeah, I would say it's a good question. We have more retailers than we did before. So, our team really wants to supply especially the independent local bike shops as many bikes as they can. We want those guys to all survive. And, I think part of the challenge, and, this is no secret if anyone follows what's going on in supply chain, is that you're putting in orders, over a year ahead of time.
Yeah.
So I think that we're cautious about it. We are not one of the brands saying, give us 5,000 times what we made before. But, we're optimistic that, sales will continue in an upward direction. So we're trying to order to accommodate that.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what brands are doing. I know that initially, I'm just going to kind of paraphrase it all. Initially, a lot of brands were like, never mind. We're going to only go in this pandemic. We don't need all that stuff. And then like 2 months later, everybody's buying bikes and they're like, just kidding. Can you give us more? And then I think after that, it was, okay, well, now we need to figure out like, what is the number? Like, are we actually going to continue selling 20 or 30% or whatever it was more than what we were buying before? Or is did the hump kind of happen and now we got to figure out what's the new norm? So I would imagine it's just pretty difficult, huh?
And I think it's, for us, where I feel grateful for like where we were at the beginning of the pandemic and now and future, we didn't have like a lot of knee-jerk reactions. I kind of felt like we did a good job of just like, it's going to be okay. Let's keep like plugging along with the work we're doing. And, maybe we need a part 2 follow-up in 3 years so we can all talk about how right or wrong we all are today.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine that would, it's definitely uncharted territory, right? So everybody's kind of making it up as they go. And I mean, I've heard some of the supply chain issues where it's like, oh no, we have the bikes, but we don't have any cardboard to put them in. Like no boxes. It's like just like some ridiculous thing where you're like, are you serious? Like that's where the problem is right now. So
it can be.
It can
or you hear about boats, sinking in the middle of the ocean.
Right.
Yeah.
Were you guys affected by any of that?
I don't think so.
I don't think anything sunk for us.
Yeah, you're good there then. Huh?
I'd say this, the container ransom thing, though. I think we were all suffering from that.
What's the container ransom?
Hey, the bikes are loaded. They're in a can. Oh, by the way, what price is a little? We gotta add a little cost.
Yeah.
There. Or the shipping company says, hey, for us to get this off the dock, we need a little bit of extra cash.
Yeah,
so
just turning it up.
Yep.
Yeah, I know I was talking to somebody, I can't remember what it was, and it was like they wanted to charge them more per piece than what they were retailing them for to get them shipped to them. And they were like, that doesn't work. Like you can't do that.
It's tough. And I mean, even, domestically, I guess it was last winter when there were tons of snowstorms in the middle of the country, it's like literally bikes were just sitting on FedEx trucks on the side of the road for 2 weeks. It's hard everywhere. So
it's definitely been interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to sit down and chat with me. It's been really fun. Do you feel like there's anything that we didn't touch on?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I wasn't sure, so I figured I'd throw it out there just in case. But no, definitely really appreciate all the time that you guys sat down here and chat with us about the brand, and I think it's really exciting what you're doing. I really like seeing a company that's catering to bringing people into the sport, and it seems like you're doing a really good job of that. So kudos to you guys. So keep doing that, because it seems like you're getting a lot of people into the sport, and they're having a good time doing it. So definitely appreciated there. Those of you guys that are listening, if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, go ahead and do that. I would appreciate it. If you would like to pick up a hip pack, go hit the link and show more and check out Lab Austria. They're definitely worth it. It's definitely a hip pack that I've been super happy with, and all my friends are too. So apparently we're all on the same kick of trying to stop carrying the big Camelback around. So that's been my thing this last year, I'd say, is downsizing the Camelback, getting all the tools on the bike, and carrying as little as possible. So if you want to check one out, go ahead and do that. If you want something for free, swing by my Instagram or my Facebook at B1KER or at B1KER B1, and that would be much appreciated. You can also check out Diamondback Bikes. Their link is in show more as well, and have a look at some of the new models that they have coming out here soon, or what they got on the site right now. That would definitely be good. I appreciate your time once again, guys. And remember one thing: if there's only one thing that you remember, it only takes a bike to be a biker. Get out and be one.